Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever Shorty, and yes, I did tell you I was going to review Red Goblin, but my thoughts on it haven't quite solidified yet. And instead, I was reading Harrower because I knew I was going to read this one anyway. It's a comic book about a slasher in a small town America. It's very much as what I'm into, just genuinely anyway. And I had a few more thoughts on this, which I thought would be worth sharing. Red Goblin may turn up. There may still be time this week to get that one stuck in there, but I find this one to be just more exciting for me, or at least more interesting to talk about. Because, yeah, I like horror movies. I like slasher movies. When I finish work today and I've gone shopping, walked the dog, and etc., etc., I'm probably going to watch Midnight Meat Train, because I watched a YouTube video about it recently, and I really like that movie, and I'm going to go and watch Vinnie Jones murder a bunch of people with a hammer. It's just, what I do to relax on an evening. So when I'm reading a comic book like this, I can appreciate that they just lean into horror movie tropes. I do get that you should be subverting them to make it more interesting, but I'm not necessarily huge on the idea of it has to be elevated horror. Don't get me wrong, movies with that tag are great, and I've really enjoyed a lot of them, but there's a bit of me who grew up watching Evil Dead that will always just get a kick out of this kind of story. So I was sitting at work reading it, thoroughly enjoying myself. I got to the end of it, and there's a brilliant, brutal reveal, an absolutely extraneous amount of violence, and I thought that was just good. But I didn't want to just stop there, because I also thought, well, maybe there's a little bit too much exposition in the middle. It really does slow it down a little bit, and the artwork isn't particularly detailed. So let's go back and read it again, because although, yes, as I was saying, subverting expectations is fine, and taking tropes and playing with them is good, just because I enjoy what I see doesn't mean there isn't more there. Doesn't mean that these creators, Justin Jordan and Brian Revel, by the way, aren't doing more with it. So I thought, let's give it another shot. Let's actually pay attention this time rather than just go, hey, look, bunch of murders. And we're in a small town America where they have this mythological creature called the Harrower. We very quickly realise it isn't necessarily just a creature or a murder in this town, but may actually be something that's been set up by the town. And at this point, there was a genuinely creepy line of, he's there to keep the town pure. Now, my first thought when I was reading that was I thought I'd misread it, and I thought it was going to be keep the town safe. That's a far more normal thing you hear in this kind of conversation, especially considering that you think the police might have something to do with it, who are usually quite willing to do terrible things in the idea of keeping people safe. But pure just made it that little bit creepier, that little bit off center for me, and it made me pay a bit more attention, and realizing that the sheriff of the town certainly does seem to know what's going on, but rather than being the guy who's willing to engage something like a Harrower, a semi-mythical mass murderer, to keep the town safe or pure, he actually seems to be against this idea, not just doing the bare minimum dangerous brutal violence to do what he thinks is necessary to keep town safe, but actually thinks this is a bad plan. And his son is actually going to try and carry on that as well. And what's quite nice is the first time we meet the son, he's walking past the good-looking jock boyfriend of the main female character, and the jock is just horrible to him. He's an absolute bully piece of crap, but he's not very good at it. And the son of the sheriff just pretty much nails him, smashes against the locker, and backs away, and everyone goes, oh yeah, that guy there, he's an absolute arsehole. And apparently there's reasons for it, and he's got a twisted background and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, so this guy who, in most other stories you've expected to the handsome jock boyfriend of the main character, he's not the good guy. Maybe he's not the bad guy, but he's still not the good guy. Maybe you'd expect him to die halfway through the movie. I'm thinking maybe the Cabin in the Woods kind of way of doing it. But it was at least interesting enough. And then we get this slightly long series of expositional beats. And again, my first read through, I was like, oh man, there's a lot to take in here. But on a second read through, it was like, well, hang on, this is all not just great expositional stuff, which is really useful to have in the first issue, so we can then concentrate on the actual brutal horror story that's going on later on. But they also use this time to do character beats. It's not fully fleshing out. There's only so many pages and there's only so much time they've got to do these kind of things, but they give time to these characters to breathe and interact with each other and set things up at the same time as they're doing subtle foreshadowing and world building, which is great. It's what you should use that time for. But it then gets to that end and it is huge and brutal and violent, and I thought, yeah, okay, maybe this is the point. Maybe this is where it's now going to just get into the pacing that I expect from teeny slasher horror, and that's fine. I love it. I'm really looking forward to the next issue. It's also worth pointing out the artwork is great. Maybe not the best artwork in the world. I'm not saying it's hugely detailed and really evokes certain moods or anything like that, but it uses its colour palette well, minimalist when it needs to, and it's also got a really brutal style to it. there is a violence to the lines just on people's faces as they're sometimes just grumpily walking through a room. Nobody looks at ease to say this is a safe town or a pure town because that's the Harrower. Everything has an edge to it. The interactions between people has an edge. There's none of that goodwill, camaraderie. Even the people who are friends seem to butt up against each other. And again, because it comes through in the artwork, it's a really nice setup and makes you think that, yeah, there's going to be more going on here. I like the idea of that. I like the idea that it can be playing off the Cabin in the Woods kind of vibe or Tucker and Dale versus Evil. And I hope it's going to continue to impress me. I'm certainly going to read the next couple of issues of it. That's it for me for now. Keep an eye out. I might do another review. Who knows? It's getting close to the weekend, and I'm going to go watch horror movies. Until I see you again, though, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.